So it looks like our opponent's on the play and immediately mulliganing. Our hand isn't great. It's not a made hand. We've got two Ulamogs, which is really bad. We have the Marvel, which is great, and the Meltdown is solid and a solid energy source. This is a pretty close hand because it's almost a multi-5 essentially when you put the Ulamogs into the equation. But the fact that we have a Marvel and lands to cast Marvel in game 1 is really good, and we might mulligan into a hand with Ulamog also. So I am going to keep this hand. I think a lot of players would mulligan this, but I really like basically any game 1 hand that has Marvel in it, because our opponent's gonna less likely to have a way to deal with Marvel, and it looks like we're up against zombies here. So a second Aetherworks Marvel, not the ideal draw step there, just because game 1 our opponent's not going to be playing discard spells like in sideboarded games. So having two Marvels, it's pretty redundant, but you can get 2 energy off of them when you already have one in play by playing a second one. Servant of the Conduit is a nice pickup there. I'm just going to play it. Could play the Meltdown here, but I think we'd rather just get the Servant into play. It might die to a spot removal spell like a Fatal Push, Grasp. Okay, so it is going to die, but at the same time, we got 2 energy from it, so it essentially did its job. Here's the Lord of the Accursed, and our opponent may come in for an attack here, or draw a card. That's the choice that Crypt Breaker gives this deck, and it looks like our opponent's going to wait and draw the card here, but we don't mind that because we just want time to be able to activate this Aetherworks Marvel, and by our opponent not basically choosing a card over 5 damage, it's going to give us more time in order to make sure that we at least get one good Marvel activation for something like a Chandra Flamecaller. We're less likely to hit Ulamog, obviously, because we have 2 in our opening hand, but it's definitely still possible. So there's the second Lord, and we're really under a lot of pressure. We're going to be able to Aether Meltdown here, and our opponent's once again choosing the card first over the damage. So we're going to be able to Meltdown away the Dread Wanderer, take 0, so we're still at 19. Our best draw step is Aether Hub. That would give us an immediate spin off the Marvel. Any other play is not going to give us that immediate spin. If our opponent is able to play Liliana's Mastery on their next turn, we are likely just going to lose, because at that point, a Chandra -4 deals 4 damage to everything, but if our opponent has 5 toughness zombies, then that plan is not even going to work out. So if our opponent has another Lord or a Liliana's Mastery on this turn, it's worst case scenario for us. Metallic Mimic, we can deal with that. As long as there's not another Lord as a follow-up. Okay, so it's going to be Relentless Dead. So we're going to be able to... Our opponent can attack us for a significant chunk if they want to. Maybe they still want to draw cards. But then we're going to be able to play Marvel, get a spin, and look for Chandra Flamecaller. Now, the Relentless Dead is a 5/5, but it's going to be shrink if these Lords leave the battlefield. And this is such a fast clock that we really don't have much time at all. So the choice is between Virtuoso and playing Aetherworks Marvel. So I think we probably want to play the Aetherworks Marvel. Although, let's see, if we play the Virtuoso, go up to 8 and find an Ulamog, we could go. We would still be in the game. So I guess we do want to play the Virtuoso here. The issue with playing the Virtuoso is that it actually is gonna die if we -4 our Chandra, which isn't optimal. But if we don't hit Chandra, we still have outs to win if we play it. So I think we want to play it. We did hit the Chandra. Okay. So that is a step in the right direction for sure. So we can minus, and we're just going to be forced to cash it in completely. So now we're wishing we had played the Marvel instead of the Virtuoso, because the Virtuoso was another threat that's now gonna hit the graveyard for us. So our opponent's gonna get the Relentless Dead trigger. They're gonna be able to bring back Crypt Breaker or return the Relentless Dead to their hand, and then the Dread Wanderer is also threatening to come back. So we're not out of the woods yet by any means. Just because of that Marvel activation and finding the Chandra, we're in the game, but we still need to be able to spin again on our next turn, most likely. And right now, we can't. We have a number of draws that are going to... Basically, any energy card in our deck, besides another copy of Aetherworks Marvel, would be good enough to give us another Marvel spin. So, Wanderer, Relentless Dead makes sense. And Shelter Thicket, that's a frustrating draw. So, actually, sorry, I don't even know why I said that. We do have 5 energy here, so we can just play the Aetherworks Marvel, and we already have the others. We already have the spin, because I wasn't thinking about the Virtuoso and the Meltdown going to the graveyard to get us go from 3 up to 5 energy. So now we're at 5 energy. We can go up to 7 by playing the Aetherworks Marvel, and we're going to keep one of these in play and take another spin here. So some people will like to, in these sort of situations, will like to wait in order to activate, but we've got cards like Chandra Flamecaller in our deck. I think we would rather just go ahead, activate the Marvel main phase, and we didn't hit what we wanted, so I am going to select a Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot here, which is going to gain us some life, give us that little buffer. And it's also going to mean that we can spin the Marvel next turn. So even though we only have 2 Ulamogs left in our deck, we've gone through the top 12 cards of our library, so we're sifting through our deck, moving towards those Ulamogs. And there's a case to be made here for playing the Shelter Thicket. I'm going to keep it, because in case we do, say, draw land, we may just want to cycle this for a fresh card. So we're at 9, and hoping that our opponent doesn't have anything more than maybe just bringing that Dread Wanderer back from the graveyard. But it is going to be a Dark Salvation, so we would love to, say, spin into another copy of Chandra. That would be great. What I'm actually going to do here is cycle the Shelter Thicket to see what we find. It's going to be another Marvel. So, not what we wanted there. I'm just going to sacrifice this Puzzle Knot and then take our spin. And there's the Ulamog. Okay, great. So we were finally able to find an Ulamog off one of our spins. And I don't think we want to get one of our opponent's lands. I'm just going to go for the 2 actual zombies in play. Zombie creatures that aren't tokens. Non-token zombies, I should say. Play the Aether Hub, and now we are 1 energy away from a spin next turn. But we're also ahead on board just by having this Ulamog in play. But it's going to depend what that last card our opponent has in hand is. And it might be another Dark Salvation. Definitely could be. But we'll see in a moment here. That would be my guess. Would be another copy of Dark Salvation, which would mean our opponent could make 2 more zombie tokens. So that's pretty good. Just because now attacks with Ulamog look a lot less appealing. But Rogue Refiner right off the top. So that's pretty good. But it's only going to bring us up to 5 energy, but a lot of draw steps are going to give us the 6th energy. Any untapped land, any energy card would do it. Unfortunately, it's a Chandra, which it's good that we have now Chandra in hand. On the other side of the coin there, we are not able to spin the Marvel this turn. So we can attack with the Ulamog. And I like making this attack because we're not in danger of dying on the backswing, being at 12 life. And if our opponent doesn't chump, they're actually just in danger of dying to the Ulamog hit next turn, not even taking into consideration the 20 cards we just exiled from our opponent's deck. So there's the Dread Wanderer coming back. But we've now put ourselves in a situation where this Chandra can sweep things away if we want to. This Rogue Refiner, once it dies, which I'm just going to go ahead and block here, it's going to put us up to 6 energy. So that's going to give us another Marvel spin as well. And so we can go ahead and spin end of turn, although we pretty much have the game locked up either way. So I'm actually just not gonna spin because our opponent's empty-handed. All we have to do is cast this Chandra Flamecaller from our hand, -2, sweep away our opponent's board, and then we can attack for 10. So tricky little game 1 there. We were able to take. So the sideboarding against mono black, it's pretty similar to playing against white black zombies. You don't have to worry about Gideon, which is nice. But you still have to be worried about all the little zombies that are being presented. So Magma Spray and Sweltering Suns are both good. And then you also want your backup plan of just dealing damage to them. So I like boarding in on the draw in this matchup 2 copies of Tireless Tracker. So shaving an Ulamog, a Chandra, Torch of Defiance, not great on the draw. And then you can also take out a Whirler Virtuoso. The Meltdown, it's not your best energy card, and then a Puzzle Knot. So we're just kind of shaving a lot of things here. Making our deck a little bit more resilient against cards like Lost Legacy, like Dispossess, like Transgress the Mind, which are the cards that we expect our opponent to be bringing to the table for the second game here. So normally the sideboarded games aren't quite as fast because our opponent has to take time off in order to play discard. So once again, we have Ulamog in hand, which isn't great, but I am going to keep this hand. Harness Lightning is pretty good in the matchup. We don't have the blue land yet, but we have some time in order to find a blue source. It's unfortunate that these game trails may come into play tapped. There's only 2 in the deck, but there's a far, so scratch that. We could put this game trail into play untapped. I'm not going to, though. We'll just let our opponent cast whatever they're going to play on turn 2. If it's a creature, we may want to Harness Lightning it, although Scrap Heap Scrounger is one of the more annoying creatures our opponent could play in this scenario. So we could Harness Lightning the Scrounger, but the downside to that is that our opponent can simply bring it back from the graveyard. And in any case, I'm just going to go ahead and Harness Lightning it, because we're going to do that either way, and we'll wait to see what our opponent's going to name with Lost Legacy. So because our opponent main phased that Lost Legacy, it was an easy decision to Harness Lightning the Scrap Heap Scrounger. And our opponent's going to pull out the Ulamog in our hand, along with the other ones in our library. It's not as bad as you might think. We're going to get to draw a card because the Ulamog was taken out of our hand. It was in a tune with Aether, and we didn't even have a Marvel, so not really that sad about it. I think in this matchup, a lot of times you would rather name Chandra Flamecaller, in fact. But in any case, we're going to play the 2 cards we just drew, which were the Tune and the Servant. And all of a sudden, we have a bunch of energy in play and are getting ready to spin Marvel if we happen to draw it. Now, if our opponent combos that Lost Legacy with a Dispossess, then all of a sudden we've lost both halves of our big finish, the Ulamog and the Marvel. But if we do, say, draw Marvel, we're going to be in a good spot, I think. We can get rid of that Crypt Breaker, although our opponent does have that Scrap Heap Scrounger, which would mean that by getting rid of the Crypt Breaker, we then have to deal with the Scrounger. So I'm just going to lead off on the Rogue Refiner. And pass the turn here. So we'll see if our opponent wants to do something. And I'm just going to hold up this Harness Lightning. See what our opponent elects to do. And our opponent knows we have the Harness Lightning too, because they saw it when playing that Lost Legacy. So it's going to be a Dark Salvation. And in this case, we do want to respond to that, get rid of the Crypt Breaker, because if we were to let this happen, then our opponent could use these 2 zombies to start drawing cards. So we have the option of going ahead and getting this Virtuoso onto the battlefield. I actually don't mind attacking with the Rogue Refiner. Looks like our opponent's going to decline the option to block. So we have the option of just playing the Puzzle Knot, playing Virtuoso, and start trying to get aggressive in the air with Thopters. So I am going to do that and see where it takes us, because we haven't found the Marvel yet. So we're all the way up to 14 energy, which means we can create 4 Thopters and potentially more later on. So our opponent's just going to start grabbing cards with Crypt Breaker, is what it seems. And we're really hoping no Liliana's Mastery, nothing like that. Our opponent is going to go for the grasp here, and I am going to convert 12 of our energy into 4 Thopters. If we draw an Aetherworks Marvel, we still have ways to get energy. So we should be able to spin it pretty soon after we draw it, if we draw it. If we don't draw it, we still want to have a path to winning, and it's going to be attacking with these Thopters and potentially even the Rogue Refiner. So we have a Rogue Refiner in hand. I'm going to play this. And there's an Attune with Aether. So, yeah, we might as well cast that as well. So our opponent does have that Scrap Heap Scrounger and 2 mana available, so it's pretty likely that that Scrounger is going to come back, although it looks like instead it's going to be a Grasp of Darkness taking care of the Rogue Refiner. And I'm gonna deal with this Crypt Breaker because we still don't want our opponent drawing cards. So let's get rid of that. So pretty close game here. If our opponent draws one of their big payoff cards, like Dark Salvation, like Liliana's Mastery, it could definitely turn the tide. But it looks like the last card in our opponent's hand was Transgress the Mind. So in this scenario, we are the favorite because we've got these Thopters. And with our opponent at 12, we're actually just winning the race as it stands right now. So I'm just going to make this block because our opponent left back a zombie to block our Rogue Refiner, and they can bring back that Scrap Heap Scrounger. There's a Tireless Tracker, which is a nice pickup. But at this point, it's really not that important because these Thopters are already just getting the job done for us. So Transgress the Mind and Lost Legacy are nice, but you can see that there is an alternative route to winning. And we don't need to draw Marvel at all in order to win post-sideboard games. So Scrap Heap Scrounger off the top. That is not an answer to this board at all for our opponent. So if our opponent attacks with this zombie, they're just leaving themselves dead on board. So it looks like that zombie is not going to be coming in. And that's just going to be the match here. Nothing our opponent can do from this situation to get out of it.